Hi, Reem.
Hi, Gianluca, how are you?
How are you? Thank you for joining us today on this second day of the Kyoto Peace Conference 2021.
Well, it's my pleasure. I'm very happy to be with you, and you've probably been so busy and with doing peace, so I'm honored to be part of that time.
Thank you, thank you. Well, for our listeners to know, I'm joining in from the physical venue of the conference, which is within Kyoto University grounds in Kyoto, in Japan, while Reem, she's joining us from
Portland, Oregon, USA, but I'm originally from Palestine, and I can talk more about it as you asked.
Exactly. I'll give you the chance to introduce yourself in a couple of minutes. Housekeeping announcements. There's we had some issues with the internet for the hybrid event, so there are other links for the general public. You've been an email was sent to you, to your accounts, to your registered accounts. You are able to send us questions afterwards or during the conversation, if you will, and we will. I'm sure to deliver it to Reem directly. Okay, so Reem, briefly, we've known each other for a while now. We've talked a few times about our efforts and how we can bring peace to different people in different communities at different levels, not only in developing countries, but also in developed countries. And I like to think of you, and I like to introduce you to our audience as I posted on Ipsos Facebook page this morning, as a peace entrepreneur, which is something that not so many people are used to as in terms of wording. But before we get to that, before we understand what does it mean for you and what it means for me, what should mean for us to be a peace entrepreneur, I would like you to give a little background story of yourself in terms of where you come from and how you came to be who you are and where you are now. Because I think it's important for other people also, and it could resonate with a lot of us in this global world where we have different experiences in different places and movements much easier, well, COVID permitting recently.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I love the term peace entrepreneur, and usually entrepreneurship comes from innovation. They say represents solution for a need. So growing up, I was in Palestine. I grew up in the Palestinian territories. I lived there, was born there. I worked and I studied there. And the Palestinian territories is a conflict zone. So I very quickly learned about peace and conflict from a practical sense. And later I worked to fix this situation by participating with international organizations support and creating avenues for peace throughout my career. And later I moved to the US, which is another society that is peaceful society compared to where I grew up. But I also learned fast and throughout my practical educational experience that peace and conflict exist not just in conflict zones, but also in peaceful societies. And so, but the difference is that they manifest themselves differently. The conditions by which they happen are different. And the solutions that are needed for both societies are different. So I've been kind of in the center of that dynamic, and I've had this intimate experience in peace and conflict in a conflict zone, and also in a peaceful society. And also throughout my education career and life experiences and network, I've been to different countries and different places. And I realized that everyone wants peace, and we all are united in that message. So most recently, especially after COVID-19, and with the rise of technology, there's a third space where I exist and all of us exist, and that is cyberspace. And so how do I live and operate in cyberspace is really interesting, because that is a third space where I live and have experienced and have worked. And there also is peace and conflict, and the conditions and the solutions that is required to address that are also nuanced. And from all these experiences, yeah,
this is super interesting, because well, aside of teaching at university, I also, of course, work in developing countries, developing projects, etc., implementing them on the ground. And for those of us who are not familiar with that reality, people would be amazed about the fact of how much people there in developing countries, no matter how poor they are, use cyberspace, and they have access to cyberspace. So there are huge international global projects to give fast and light access to the internet and to cyberspace to developing countries. So actually, we haven't, like, for example, here in super developed Japan, we're having problems with internet connections and hybrid events, etc. But I'm pretty sure that our friends that are connected via links in Africa and Latin America have a better connection, possibly, right? So as you're mentioning, the importance of the use in cyberspace and how to exploit it, especially in developing countries, and the peace discourse, is what we're talking about today, is absolutely important, right? And yeah, so what was for you, like, the first thing, the first occasion that, you know, made you understand and realize that, okay, this is it, I need to use cyberspace, I need to exploit this channel if I want to deliver, if I want to get connections in what your expertise, what your field is?
Yeah, so that is a great observation and question, Gianluca, because what in my role in the RAG, Rotary Action Group for Peace, as its executive director, we experienced the pandemic, which was, you know, COVID-19. We're still recovering and hopefully going to a better reality soon. And when that first hit, I realized that my goal in that organization was to really empower the grassroots in all the countries that were represented in our membership base. And often we did that in physical space, like, so we'd go to global conferences, we would meet them and interact with them, and in that sense. But when COVID hit, I realized fast that peace could not be a victim of that pandemic. And I needed to utilize every single idea and resource to make that to make the pandemic not a barrier to peace. So we thought about the Together for Peace webinar series, and really we launched it within the, I think, third week of the pandemic, because I realized fast that people really I wanted to bring people together. And what fascinated me was that it resonated with people, that people really wanted to be together and they didn't have that opportunity. And what also resonated with me is that we had higher representation. So I had the chance to know and interact with more people, and also get to know their stories at an intimate level. So one of the issues that I learned from that experience is the importance of access, and how the internet and cyberspace gives us access to people we want to reach. And also for people who it's important for us to hear their voices and to hear their ideas, because it's through them that we can deliver better services and products and programs for peace. So that really that was my first experience that made me become intentional about creating such dynamic, utilizing such programming, utilizing the tools of virtual space.
Right, right. So access, speaking about access, there's, I get, for cyberspace, I get many times in the classroom, for example, there's a lot of debate, especially in the developed world, about access, restricted access, biased access, so different issues, if you will, connected with access, and how can we exploit the channel, exploit access, and freer and more easier access to the cyberspace, and at the same time, not to regulate it, but to give a fair possibility to people who do not have the tools to understand and to gauge the reality. How could they access that space in a safe manner? And how could they, again, not be used? How could that access not be used against them, for example? That is one question I get asked a lot. And what do you think about that? Is there any way, have you encountered anything specific? Because especially from the Middle East, but also in the US where you're based, biased access to cyberspace and to information and technology in general can be a huge problem. And we had lots of issues at hand we can talk about, right? Have you experienced something like that during your projects? And if you can, in just a couple of words, because you mentioned a few places like the Rotary Action Group, etc. Can you just say, because I'm pretty sure not so many people know what they are. So
yeah,
to give us an idea of what.
Yeah, so to address, maybe address the definitions so the Rotary Action Group for Peace is an organization that supports Rotarians who are members of Rotary International to advance the peace mission. And I was their former executive director. I left the organization just recently to pursue continue to pursue peace, but with different hats on and different organizations. I will be joining Solidarity 2020 and beyond. I will be their international outreach deputy. And also I joined what's called the Founder Institute to become the peace entrepreneur that I would love to be. And those are all like different hats. And I'm also working with another important organization that everyone here should know about, the Institute for Economics and Peace, which has developed the Global Peace Index. And that is a major milestone for peace, to measure peace, because once we are able to measure peace, then we can advance. Okay, I will try to slow down.
You know what? I've been. It's super. I also tend to speak quite quickly, and when I was in the UK, people would always tell me that you're second to the Indians in terms of speaking speed, but. A lot of our audience is not native English speaking, and they are connecting with different parts of the world, so there is also connections problem, etc. So thank you very much.
I'll try my best. I'll slow down. Okay, so the Global Peace Index, that was the index produced by the Institute for Economics and Peace. And what I highlighted was that it's important for us to start measuring peace, because then we can measure the progress or the deterioration of peace. And that is a tremendous amount of, this is important for peace building and the peace field. To address back your question about access, I have different ideas about access. There's positive ways by which the cyberspace empowers access. Like you mentioned, in the developing countries, people can have access to conversations that exist on the internet, to innovation, to business opportunities. And the internet gives them this access that is solving travel barriers. Like, for example, if I am an immigrant in the United States, but I am Palestinian, I don't have citizenship yet, and I'm still operating by my Palestinian passport. If you were to ask me to come and speak at Kyoto Peace Conference, you should give me a notice, at least probably 6 to 3 months notice, for me to be prepared to address all the travel barriers that would lead me to speak at your conference and be present in person. But the fact that we are doing this hybrid conference, I am able to be part of this conversation without having to decline this amazing invitation to speak, because I can't come because I am an immigrant and because I have more barriers to entry than an American or a British or someone with a better passport than mine.
Right.
I wonder if that.
Which is a great point, because still, of course, you have a Palestinian passport, but you've been in the US for quite a long time now. So you should have a track record of, of movements and documents, etc. And I mentioned, so yeah, we can imagine how, people from the Middle East or other countries who have, travel barriers are, in the practical impossible situation of moving, of traveling, and to have, their voice heard. I remember you were mentioning to me something similar that happened to you in the past when you were invited, if I'm not wrong, in the UK.
Yes.
Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that? Because I think it's an inspiring story, and lots of people. There's a few policymakers listening in the conversation, so maybe something will change for the better in this sense.
So there was an initiative. I work closely with Rotarians also because I'm also a Rotary Peace Fellow, and in my previous role, I worked on supporting many peace initiatives. And one of these peace initiatives was a peace park between India and Pakistan that was led by Rotarians who reside in the UK, but they are from Indian and Pakistani origins. So they came together and they wanted to advance this mission and this vision of creating a peace park between the borders of India and Pakistan. And I endorsed their effort as the executive director of the Rotary Action Group for Peace. So I got an invitation that was on a short notice of 3 weeks to go and speak at the House of Parliament in the UK and represent and share why I supported this effort and what it meant to me. And I honestly could not go at this short notice, and my voice was not there. I couldn't be at the House of Parliament sharing about peace from my perspective, from my experience, as someone who lived in a conflict zone and in a peaceful society, and why supporting such a project meant to me and for my list. And so that is unfortunately because we operated, at the time where I had to be there in person, and I just couldn't. It was just not realistic.
Right.
Unlike today, yeah.
Right, and that is one thing we have learned in that strait, so to speak, because due to the COVID situation, we couldn't, even now at the venue, there's lots of people that are they prefer to join in online because there's still lots of restrictions also in Japan. So we will have, this is the first edition, as you know, of the Kyoto Peace Conference 2021. We will have other editions in the following years, and we are absolutely convinced that this is the way to go, the hybrid. And with your connections also, where I'm really looking forward to invite other participants that really cannot travel and cannot come to the venue and are not in a favorable environment either. So they're not in Europe or in the US where they can have other people listen to their story, right? But going back to your definition for today, so the peace entrepreneur. I was mesmerized, I was very well impressed while talking to you by how clear it is in your mind that we need to utilize the economy, we need to utilize the business world, we have to exploit the business world to achieve peace, to achieve a peace that delivers, and not a peace that remains theoretical either in academic circles, as here at universities, or at a volunteer level, so only on the ground, for example. When yesterday we were talking about activities in refugees camps, etc. So how can we create a world between these two realities? It's one reality, but to link the two ways that this reality is addressed at the moment. And I absolutely love your idea of, putting it into the economic discourse. Would you give us a little of, inspiration with that, and how are you managing to do that? Because you're, of course, in the US, it's much easier to do that than in other regions of the world, including Japan, where the peace discourse is yet, unfortunately, only on the theoretical level, where we don't, as a country, well, I say we because I've been in Japan for 18 years, but we don't accept refugees, for example. Japan has one of, I think, the lowest rate of refugees acceptance in the world among the G8 and the G20. So there's 9 to 11, around 10 refugees per year that have been recognized in past decades. So how is it important to create a business model, create a space in the economic conundrum for peace discourse and for peace initiatives?
Very great question, Gianluca. I think before we create anything, we need to understand the environment by which we operate. And when you start an initiative in the market, if we are talking about economics, you need to understand that market and that economy. And we in the virtual space live in what's called the attention economy. And attention economy in the virtual world means that we need to start to think about attention as a resource. And we need to start recognizing that the attention on cyberspace is a scarce resource. And whose attention are we getting? As we develop a business, we need to focus on, or a program for peace, we need to think about youth, because they spend most of their time on social media and on cyberspace more than the other aged groups. So also we need to recognize the environment or the market, the state of this market, the attention market. What is currently happening on social media and in cyberspace? We see that the internet is a space occupied by negative content, by violence, by cyberbullying, by propaganda, terrorism even. And we as peace builders need to recognize that we need to reclaim the cyberspace and create a space for mutual understanding, for trust, for compassion, and for democracy. And we do that by really looking at how the business world operates and understands that. And most recently, we had the famous whistleblower incident of Facebook, who came and shared that Facebook puts profits ahead of the impact his platform is doing to advance the best interest for people and its users. And that is an ongoing discussion now at the Congress level and at the government level in the US. And so, and she said, the whistleblower, that this is because there is no clear, the metrics put by Facebook is leading this kind of environment. So we as peace builders need to create a new agenda and need to create it with this understanding of the environment by which we operate. We can create what's called peace influencers. As of now, all businesses and the Instagram, they promote products using sexualizing women. Women are being sexualized on these platforms to sell product. What about people who are educated, who have a message, who have an experience, who need to be here to bring us together, to advance peace and bring markets that doesn't currently exist on the cyberspace, elevate those markets by using their voices. One example, I can talk about the Palestinian brother and sister from Sheikh Jarrah, who were nominated as the one of the top 100 influencers by Time magazine for 2021 because they both influenced and opened a window to the cause of the Palestinians. And what they did, they utilized their social media following to share their living experience in the occupied territories in Palestine, especially in Jerusalem. And they elevated the hashtag Sheikh Jarrah, Save Sheikh Jarrah, which was representing the issue of 28 families, Palestinian families who were originally refugees when Israel was established. And what those brother and sister did is shared just their human story, and they shared their concern that they are at the verge of becoming refugees one more time, and they got the world's attention. And I want to highlight something here, especially about the two brother and sister. They're called Muna and Muhammad, Muna and Muhammad Kurd. The Kurds represent to me what Martin Luther King said, that not everyone can be famous, but everyone can be great. Muhammad and Muna were famous. They were part of the 100 Times Magazine nominated people for impact in the world. But everyone who supported them wasn't famous, but they were great. Muhammad and Muna could not do what they've done to elevate the Palestinian cause without everyone behind them who elevated their hashtag, everyone who believed in the same values. Muhammad and Muna represented a base of people and a silent majority or unseen majority, and brought them to the table. They brought them to this conversation that is an important conversation that we never had before at a global scale in cyberspace, because there were many great people behind them. Muhammad and Muna have had that role. And I feel that our peace builders today, our organizations that, and this platform can play the role of elevating the voices once we have an agenda that is clear on the internet. What are the messages we put out there? What kind of causes that we need to bring to the surface, and how can we engage our audience that supports us on the internet to start mapping this cyberspace in a way that allows those voices and those stories and those issues to be brought to the surface.
This is absolutely great, and this resonates very well with a few words that I've said, I've mentioned during my keynote at the beginning of the conference yesterday, because there is this misunderstanding that the faces of peace are always the faces of the politicians and the policymakers and the important people that, you know, come up on television whenever we're talking about peace, which is oftentimes connected with war. So on television and on the former channels, we only talk about peace in relation with war. So there is a cessation of a conflict, or you know, there's a pre-situation that is, you know, developing into a conflict, etc. And we always see the same faces. And what I was arguing is that the real faces of peace are not the 10, 20, 50 people we see on television whenever something occurs, are the billions of faces of the people of the world that are connected, as you rightly said, through cyberspace. And if we were to have a Zoom session with all those faces, even Zoom wouldn't be able to handle it, because there would be too many windows popping up. So that is how powerful, as you said, and I totally agree with you, is cyberspace, especially with youth, and especially in this during these years. I loved very much the idea of promoting virtual activism. Right? So each one of us start saying something, sharing it through our own network, whether it is 20 friends, 500 or 5,000, right? And if we do that, as you said, in a structured way, there is absolutely nothing we cannot achieve. So our message, we've had very, very important hashtags. You know, you can mention a few maybe, especially in the US, that have stirred huge social movements, right? What is, if you can think of one, what is the hashtag that has, you know, driven the masses recently in the US? Because we've talked about the Palestinian case. What could be a similar case in the US in recent years?
Yeah, I think I can think of two hashtags that have similar model. The Me Too movement to elevate the cause of women and the violations against women in the workplace. And most recently was the hashtag Black Lives Matter movement that was elevated after the sad death and murder of George Floyd. So what I could say about those two is that cyberspace, as of now, is a game of numbers. So basically, the more people who are following or believing or you know, are upset about an issue or passionate about an issue, the more they reshare, the more they like, and in doing so, that becomes the kind of the winning hashtag or the hashtag that we all see. And so there is cyberspace tells us about the pulse of people. It gives us this opportunity to understand what really hurts people, what people want to have solved, what problems they want to solve. In some cases, yes. But because this is how it's been, like with the US. And because of those hashtags, more people became aware about the racism, the structural racism that exists in and the oppression against women that exists in the US society. And the conversation became more normalized. And that's another thing, because it's a game of numbers, then the awareness level increases and the participation increases, and then we have more conversations, and we have more ability to shed light on issues that otherwise would have been just a news report that we forget about. But these hashtag exists. It's a platform. Each hashtag is a platform for a conversation, and the more people engage in that conversation, the more this conversation grows, evolves, and bring more support for that conversation.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we were having this conversation a few times back recently, and Reem and I were thinking that, you know, there has been momentum for different movements. So the With Me, the Black Lives Matter, and as you rightly said now, it has normalized the discussion, which is a very important thing, because we're dealing with numbers. So if the majority of people involved in the movement, say 90, 80, even 80% of the people involved in that movement do it in a peaceful manner, the rest, the remaining 20%, that is stirring the discussion in a more violent way, disappears. So we're really counting on numbers. It all depends on numbers and how we can reach the people and how we can create momentum for one issue, whatever issue that we have at heart. So our question, Reem and I, we were wondering, why don't we have lots of hashtags and lots of movements, different things of the world, which is absolutely fantastic, and they're meant to be there because it's important. Why isn't there anything similar in the peace discourse? So why there is no such a movement for peace? Because as I said at the beginning, also in the keynote, and I repeated it here, we always think that peace is delivered upon us by other people, by policymakers, etc. Why don't we take matters in our own hands? And right, I think we should create this momentum. What do you think, Reem?
Yeah, it's about time. And I think today we have the numbers, we have the recipe to actually start momentum, because you have amazing people from representing 63 countries. I saw on Facebook, Facebook, and it's fascinating. We can create a global movement now. If you all, and today we can start by the end of conference. I really hope to see thousands and hundreds of these hashtags. So we decided to create a hashtag for the conference called Elevate Peace. So hashtag Elevate Peace. If you go to EPSO Facebook page, you will see the hashtag, and please hashtag that and hashtag EPSO, IPSO, and also hashtag Kyoto Peace Conference 2021. So we can have this 3 hashtags, knowing each other, and you can find everything and meet one another, because this whole idea of this conference is for people to continue to the conversation after the conference. So once you want to continue the conversation, you can create those hashtags and post a selfie of yourself with a thought or a lesson you learned from the conference. You can also share a photo of an inspiring peace work that you've done. And actually, Gianluca and I, we just posted some pictures. If you want to see what we've done, go to hashtags Elevate Peace, hashtag IPSO, hashtag Conference 2021, and you will see some of the inspiring work that we've done. I want to I have to tell the story, Gianluca, about how we arrived to this. Yeah. So I don't know if every one of you know that Gianluca was a pilot in his life. You are still a pilot. Yeah. And through his journey of travel around the world, you're originally from Italy and in England and all like Europe. And so through your travels, you got to develop and cultivate compassion for other people, because you became intimate with their stories. You became closer, and you've become aware of world problems that don't show up on TV. You haven't experienced before. And through your journey as a traveler, as a pilot, as a humanitarian, you decided to become intentional about peace. And then you did the difficult thing. You did not 1 PhD, you did 2 PhDs, and you started a peace organization. And now we're having this conference. So Gianluca's story really inspires me, and it resonates with me, because I came to my journey of peace in a similar way, having to travel across the ocean, being an immigrant. We both are immigrants, and meeting people and learning about ourselves and others through meeting them. And we thought that our journey of flying, so elevating, and then peace, coming across border, and then that allows us to elevate peace in us. So we elevated ourselves physically and then elevated our spirits. So that's why the story of Elevate Peace, I feel that we all have similar story. Someone that we met that was different from us changed something about us, about how we receive the world, and in doing so changed us, and our mission became intentional for peace. So please share your story and elevate peace.
That is absolutely great. Thank you. And I think we share the responsibility. And although I'm not carrying passengers around any longer, I would love to think that with this first leading initiative, I can have you all on board with elevating peace on this virtual plane, connect all places in the world, and create a huge community that can really bring about change in our daily lives and bring about peace in our small, large, and global connections situations. So right ahead, as Sim said, thank you very much. Just finish the conversation, go onto your social networks, anything at all, elevate peace, anything you've done or you want to do or that inspires you, that would be a great inspiration for other people to do the same. We have to create momentum. If we don't create intentionally momentum, and then people will not move, will not follow us. We will not follow these ideals of creating peace with our own hands. It was a pleasure to have you here, Reem. I think our audience appreciated very much your sharing your stories and your inspiring life. And I really hope that wherever and whenever possible, people would dream, even younger people would dream of becoming peace entrepreneurs in the future and make that a career, make that a real job and mission in life, and not something they do aside those extra activities. That was amazing having you. I look forward, as you rightly said, to continue this conversation with all our old and new friends that we'll make through this conference. And we're looking forward to meet you all in cyberspace.
Yeah, so on that note, as we wrap this up, I posted a landing page if people would like to continue that conversation. Gianluca and I were talking about starting, part of my current mission is to create a company with the Founder Institute called, as of now, the name is Media X for Peace. And I put the landing page if you would like to continue that conversation. Gianluca and I were thinking about hosting an event to explore ideas about technology, media, and peace. And that is kind of the cyberspace kind of next step, or kind of a launch of activity. So we hope that you can join us so I can be in touch with you and let you know about future events and conversations that Gianluca and I would have, and have you be participants of this ongoing conversations to connect technology, media, and peace. Gianluca, it was my honor to have this conversation with you, and good luck with the rest of the events and the conference. And it's very nice to meet you all virtually today.
That was lovely. Thank you very much, and talk to you soon again, Reem.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.